You read that title correctly. We are going to look in depth and give a little taste of what the Dolphins could do cap-wise and look at Tua Tagovailoa's contract. And there's some good, but there's some bad. What is up, fans? Given an in-depth look at Tua Tagovailoa's contract, got a little bit more information from Barry Jackson. He kind of goes into detail on how the Dolphins can save money this season and next season, but it's not going to be good for the future. So we're going to look at that. But real quick, I do have to, it's not a good shout out, but a while back, I shouted out a fellow Finn fan of ours. His name was Clarence Tinney. I hope I said his last name properly. He was in the hospital. His friend Mason sent me a picture of him with Calais Campbell. I thought it was really cool, and I was informed last week that unfortunately he did pass away. So I did want to, before I start this video, kind of put my thoughts and my prayers and my condolences out to him and his family. Mason was telling me that he went by Buka. I think that's how you said it, by many. He will be missed. And, you know, it's another Dolphin fan that we lost in this community. And he's too young, man. He's way too young. But I wanted to come out here. I talked about him before. I want to come out here and give my condolences to him, his family, his friends, anyone that knew him. Lost a Dolphin fan, man. It really sucks. And, you know, hopefully, you know, we can get a Super Bowl so he can watch from up above us, host that Lombardi trophy. I'm pretty sure he's sitting there probably not very happy with the moves they're making. But again, my condolences to his family. Great kid. Like I said, got to meet Calais Campbell. This is before he was a Dolphin. So I just wanted to shout him out and his family before we jumped into this. Also, today we have a fact on the day, and that is the Dolphins were in only their seventh year, their third in the NFL, when they forged Pro Football's lone perfect season in 1972. Now, it was their third in the NFL. 1966, they became a team, and they were part of the AFL. And then they joined the NFL in 1969, if my math is correct on that. So we're going to jump into this Mamma Jam. Barry Jackson, love that man. I got to meet him at training camp. Fantastic human being. The fact that little short story. I'm at training camp. And everyone, all the beat writers stand behind me because Omar's like, hey, come sit up with us. You can kind of see everything. And I'm still debating if I'm going to training camp this year. I'd like to go to 2 days back to back. And I don't know if I'm going to go to joint practice because going to joint practice is hard. And I got them all behind me, and I got Omar sitting to my right, and I'm talking to him. And then I meet Seth Levitt and, you know, all these guys, Brandon and Big O, they're all sitting behind me. And then they go inside. So everyone kind of gets up and goes. Barry's typing. So I'm like, I'm going to go say hi to Barry. So I walk over. I'm like, hey, Barry. And he looks up at me. I'm like, huge fan. Love your writing. I go by DouglieDoWrong on Twitter. I don't know. And he goes, oh, I know who you are. And I was like, I'm dumb. Like, these guys, I look up to these guys, Barry Jackson, Omar Kelly, like all of these guys. So the fact that like me and Omar have a continuous conversation, I have him on the channel, this stuff, Big O, you know, I have these connections. It just blows my mind because for the longest time I was looking up to these guys. But anyway, he comes out with an article yesterday. And it says, the Dolphins' looming quandary with Tua Tagovailoa and the consequences of either path. And that's why I titled my video, The Good and the Bad. He also goes into some details on other moves the Dolphins can make to clear up cap space. That will be a video in itself, I'm thinking, next week when we get closer to March 13th, 14th, when free agency starts. I'm going to make a video essentially how we can get under the cap space. I'm going to make a video about we should cut, who we should resign, free agent targets. I got so much planned. But for today, I really wanted to focus on Tua's contract because I made the video yesterday about the quarterback situation, and his contract is one that is very peculiar because it has a lot of verbiage in it, and also again, there's the good and the bad. So let's just jump into this. I'm rambling too much. We're already 4 or 5 minutes in, and I'm talking too much. Already $12 million over the cap, the NFL's 2025 salary cap. The Dolphins will need to perform their usual cap gymnastics. I don't know why I couldn't get that out to fill a dozen or more needs this offseason. So yeah, the Dolphins are $12 million over the cap, but that could change, but it could change for everybody, right? I think the New England Patriots are like $130 million in cap space. It's ridiculous. And it's going to go up because the viewing and the subscription and everything for Netflix during the NFL season, during the Christmas games, went up. Like we got 30 million in cap space influx last year. It's probably going to be like 50. So if the Dolphins stay status quo, and everyone's getting this, if the Dolphins are staying status quo, they'll probably still get that 40 million and probably be sitting at some type of cap space without doing any moves. So again, we'll talk about this when I go into detail on how to save cap space. But their decision on one of their players will be particularly fascinating. As cap expert Joel Corey noted, the Dolphins can do a max restructure of Tua's contract this offseason, one in which his $25.046 million base salary. You know what I'm going to do? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of pop up his contract so you can see what I'm talking about while I'm talking about it. Because I'm going to be reading it and you're probably going to be like, what are you talking about, Doug? So I kind of want you to see what they're talking about. So let me do that. And then I'll continue to read. Because I'm a visual learner. I don't know if you're a visual learner. Anyway, so let me continue reading the article. So it says, let me pop it up. Kaplow, there you go. There's his contract. So it says, on which his $25.046 million base salary cap of 2025, which is right here, would drop to $1.17 million. That would create $19.1 million in cap room and lower his 2025 cap hit from $39 million to just $20 million. So again, they could do something with his base and drop this cap hit. So again, the Miami Dolphins are sitting at negative $12 million. Just by doing that, they'll go up to $7 million in cap space. But there's a downside to that, as Corey stated. Let me get rid of this so now I can talk to you. But there's a downside to that, as Corey stated. His cap hit every season from 2026 through 2029 would then jump up by $4.7 million, which would further increase the dead hit for the money if they choose to part with him after the 2026 or 2027 season. Moving on from Tua now or next season would not be prudent financially. According to Over the Cap's Jason Fitzgerald, the real option for release of Tua would be in 2027, when they would still have about $64 million on the cap to account for, but about $20 million would remain guaranteed. Importance to note that $20 million is only guaranteed for injury, however. So essentially what they're talking about is this right here, right? The 2027 out here. If the Dolphins don't make a move on Tua's contract, they do have a somewhat of an out here where they could release him, but you see that dead cap of $45.2 million. It's a lot of money. So yeah, they can move. This is if in 2025, they don't do anything to his contract, they can move on from him here and save a little bit of money in $11.2 million. But again, like he said, his contract will go up. On the third day of the 2026 league year in mid-March next year, $3 million of Tua's 2027 salary becomes guaranteed, but there's no guarantee for 2028. So essentially, they have to make a decision on their third year in 2026 what they want to do with his salary cap and all that stuff. Tua's $31 million salary in 2027 and his $41.4 million salary in 2028 are not guaranteed. So essentially, these two are not guaranteed. His 2027 and his 2028 contracts are not guaranteed. So if you notice, his dead cap really lowers here and here. Now, I'm assuming that this is if they don't do anything. If the Dolphins, after next season, decide to keep Tua for the 2026 season and then make a decision whether to keep him beyond, they would thus be on the books, be on the hook another $20 million in guarantees. So I'll read that one more time. If the Dolphins, after next season, decide to keep Tua for the 2026 season and then decide and then the decision whether to keep him beyond, they would thus be on the books for only for $20 million in guarantees. So again, keeping him in 2026 would help when it comes to, his contract, and we'll look at that. Tua's deal included $167.2 million in guaranteed money, of which $93.2 million was fully guaranteed at signing. As it stands, if the Dolphins cut Tua in the spring of 2027, they would have two options with his dead money. And this is where I can pretty much show it to you because, again, I'm a visual learner. So if they cut him here, they have two options with his dead money. They can either do a pre-trade or release in 2021, and then his dead money is 34.8, or they can do a post June 1st, and they could split it up between 2027 and 2028. There's a lot. Contracts are just a pain in the tuchus, I'm telling you right now. But those hits would rise significantly with the restructure this offseason. If the Dolphins do the max restructure in the next 6 weeks to give them an extra $19 million in cap space this offseason, his 2026 cap hit would rise from $56.4 to $61.2 million. There also would be a $4.8 million increase for his cap hit in 2027 and in 2028 and in 2029. So his cap hit would go up for the next 3 years. What's clear, reading's hard. What's clear is this: whether the Dolphins restructure Tua or not, he needs to stay healthy and produce, because anything else would be devastating to the franchise. 1,000,000%. And again, let's go back and look. So essentially, you're looking here at 2025 with this cap hit. You're not doing anything with Tua this year, right? Unless you can somehow, some way find a trade partner after June 1st. Like, say the Dolphins pull off a miracle and they trade up and they get Cam Ward or Shadori Sanders or something like that, and then they trade him June 1st to anyone for a 7th round pick. And he ain't going anywhere. He's going to be on the team in 2025. And like I showed you, but this would change. All of this would change. And I'll show you again, because this is what I'm reading. All of that would change if they did the restructuring. So right here. But those hits would rise significantly with the restructure of this offseason. If the Dolphins do the max restructuring in the next 6 weeks, yada, yada, his cap hit in 2026 would rise from 56.4 to 61.2. This would go up immensely. So the Dolphins need to sit back and think, right? Do they want to restructure here and get $19 million in cap space? Or do they want to stay pat and have a potential to move on from him in 2026, right? You got a huge dead cap. Regardless, if Tua gets injured again, or if Tua doesn't produce at the end of the year, or something happens where McDaniel and Greer gets fired, so the new head coach is like, I want to bring in my guy. I want to draft my guy. We're a bad team. We have a top 5 pick, yada, yada. I don't want Tua anymore. He's this, and that. Whatever the reason is, they can move on from him, but it's going to cost them. And looking at the Miami Dolphins cap space, right? Negative 14 million, but if you go on over the cap, it's negative 12 million. It's all different here and there. 2026, obviously they have 17 million. Tua is a big part of that, but again, if they release him, they save 11 million, so it goes up to 28 million. Then Tyreek Hill also can be released. That would save money. Restructuring Bradley Chubb, Jalen Ramsey, a lot of things can happen, and I'm going to talk about that if 2025 does not work out. But this is what the Miami Dolphins have to think to themselves. Do they want to save the cap space now and put it all on black, and Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer essentially say, we might not be here next year, so screw it. What does it matter to us? Let's restructure his contract and screw the next people, because God forbid we're not here or not, and we'll figure it out if we are. Let's just move on and do what we need to do and screw it again. Or do they stay pat and say, hey, we might be here next year. You know, I have a plan. I could do this. I could do that. We need the cap space. We need the flexibility to move on from Tua. God forbid he does get a concussion. He does get this. He does get that. Because the Dolphins, and I'll give you a little preview. The Dolphins can move on from players this year and still save somewhat of a cap space, right? Tron Arm said we don't know what he's doing, if he retires or not. That also can save cap space. I don't know how that would affect it, right? Because you could save about $3 million, but if it's a post June 1st, you could save about $14 million. But if he retires, is it the $14 million? Do we get it sooner? I'd have to look into that. There's the restructuring of Bradley Chubb, knocking his cap hit from 28 down. You can again restructure Jalen Ramsey, because I'm pretty sure he has 1 year of guarantees, so you can move that back a year. You can restructure other guys. You can do what you need to do with Tyreek, whether it's trade him or not. Again, you're not going to save much money, or you can get a lower draft pick and save money. There's a lot of things the Dolphins can do cap wise, right? You can, we'll just do a real quick synopsis of, right, we're at negative 14 million, whether it's negative 14, negative 12, right? Say the Dolphins release Raheem Mostert, they release Jake Bailey, who else could they release? Again, I'm going to do a full in detail of all of this. They could release Kendall Fuller, which would save you like $3 million. Again, this is like minuscule stuff. They can release Durham Smythe, because they don't really need him. All of a sudden, you're at $4 million. Again, the cap space will go up. Making these 4 moves, you can do those things. You can come over here, you can look at more moves that you can make. But again, a lot of it could be restructuring, like here, right? All of a sudden, boom, we're at $9 million. Jalen Phillips, you're not touching that. Austin Jackson, you're not touching that. Teron Armstead, you don't know what's going on with that. All of a sudden, you're at $9 million. You could be at about $39 million just from making these little moves. I'm going to go into more detail. I'm going to do more things. But all I did here was I just added one more void year onto his contract and moved the ball down, kicked it down the lane. Overall, what I'm trying to say is they have to make a decision, and it kind of piggybacks off of what I was talking about yesterday with Tua. And they have to make it now. They have to decide, do they want to stick with Tua for an extra year? Do they think that they will be on this team in an extra year? Like, there's a lot that goes into these things that they need to think about, because this is it. And I think next week I'm going to make the video about what happens if 2025 fails, because you'll be surprised the things I'm hearing if 2025 fails. You'll be surprised. But comment below. What would you do if you're the Dolphins? Would you just stay pat, let him have his $39 million? We'll figure out cap space elsewhere. I don't want to be, stuck with him any longer than I need to be. Do you get the cap space and, hope and pray this, and that? Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Also, comment below. Do you want me? I'm thinking of doing live streaming the Washington Eagles game and then just watching the Bills Chiefs game on my own. So comment below. What do you think? Because the past 2 playoff games, no one was really in there. I had like 200 people on the live stream, whereas when I do Dolphin games, it's way more than that. So you could say, I don't care, I'm not going to watch, or, I'd prefer this or that. Comment below, let me know. I'll let you guys know when I make the pick video tomorrow, which game I'll be live streaming, but I will be live streaming one of the playoff games on Sunday. But on that, I will see you tomorrow. Like usual, stay classy and fins up.